Hey YouTube, and welcome back to Psalms 2 Cents. I'm excited for today's video because I get to share with you guys some fragrance beginner terminology and tips, specifically 5 tips on wearing fragrances. So let's roll the intro, let's get this thing going, baby. I know. You're probably thinking 2 things. 1, damn, what a jersey. And you'd be correct. This is my boy. This is my baby. Lamar Jackson. Let's get it. Number 2 being, damn, he made his bed. I did that for you. That's not what it always looks like, but enough of that. Let's get to the video. I thought I would go over some basic fragrance terminology, so when you're watching the rest of the videos, you're not thinking, holy shit, this guy's blabbering and I don't know what the hell he's talking about. First thing I wanted to go over is the differences between a niche fragrance and a designer fragrance. Designer fragrance is probably what you have normally smelled in your life, if not all you've smelled in your life, which is the typical Giorgio Armani's, Chanel, Dolce & Gabbana. And then you get into the niche side of things. What the hell is niche? I'm glad you asked. I think the technical definition of niche is that they only make perfumes or fragrances. In my eyes, or in my head, I basically just think about the differences as in, if I go to my local store, retail store, are they going to be there? Are they not going to be there? So that's all you need to know about niche versus designer. Second thing is the different concentration levels of fragrances. This is super important, probably more important than you actually thought they would be, and I'll tell you why. Basically, we have 4 essential types of concentrations. First one being eau de cologne, or EDC. Next one is eau de toilette, which is EDT. Then we have eau de parfum, which is EDP. And then we have regular parfum at the end. Now, before I get too into this, I should say that some smells and some types of colognes actually have at least 2, maybe 3 versions of the same exact smell. And so the only difference between these whole 4 is actually how much alcohol concentration is in these fragrances. So I know what you're thinking, who gives a shit about the alcohol concentration? I'll explain why that matters. Basically, the more concentration of alcohol that a fragrance has, the longer it lasts on your skin. And it also has to do with projection usually. For example, EDCs have the lowest alcohol concentration out of all 4. What you're gonna find is that you wear it and then after a couple hours, if that, you won't be able to smell it anymore. If you're spending $100 on an EDC, I just want you to know that so you're not super pissed when you can't smell it or somebody says they can't smell it after you wore it for an hour. And then on the other end of the spectrum, parfum, those are going to be the ones where you spray it on your arm, you go on a run, you go home, you shower 4 times, you go to bed, you wake up, you shower again in the morning, and you can still smell it on your arm. And then obviously the in-betweens. What you'll normally find at local retailers and what the most popular type out of the 4 is definitely EDT. It's going to give you what you think about in terms of how long a cologne lasts or fragrance lasts. It's going to be EDT. You get down the spectrum of alcohol concentration, what you're going to find is the projection is also going to be different between all 4 types. So with EDCs, you're going to get beastly projection relatively for those first couple of hours or so. And then with the parfums, which is on the total end of the spectrum, a lot of people might not be able to actually smell it on you. It's not going to go so super far off your body, but it's going to be a lot closer to your skin and it's going to last longer. That should help you choose between one of those 4 when you're looking. Another term that you're going to hear me use quite a bit in my fragrance reviews is the word performance. I know what you're thinking. So this isn't a sport. What do you mean performance? How do fragrances perform? Oh, but they do. So performance is broken down into 3 main categories. 1 is projection. 2 is sillage. I don't know what it is about that word. Sillage. I love that word. Third one is longevity. Longevity, pretty self-explanatory. How long does the fragrance last? projection, how far off of your body the fragrance is. And then that awesome word sillage is referring to the scent trail that your cologne or fragrance leaves behind as you walk by. Sillage is best explained with that classic scenario where you're wearing your favorite fragrance, you're walking down the street, you walk shoulder to shoulder beside a lovely looking lady, and she does one of these. That's the best way of explaining sillage, is those head turners. That is what sillage does. Those three things are going to be all coined together in the phrase performance. Some other important things to know are the type of notes that are in fragrances. We do have notes in fragrances, and so you're gonna hear me say the words opening or top notes, middle, which would be heart notes, dry down, which would be considered base notes. These three are essentially the different stages of a fragrance's life. When you go to these local retailers and you're spraying some of these either on you or on those tester cards or whatever, what you're going to be smelling after you do the typical, what you're going to be smelling is the opening, and that's it, the top notes. This is super misleading sometimes because when you're smelling that off the tester card, again, you're only getting basically a third of the entire fragrance in that one whiff. So you might love that one whiff, you might buy the entire bottle, then when you go spray it, you might notice that, oh, after 4 hours, it smells a little different, and I'm not a huge fan. Okay, finally made it to my top 5 tips slash advice slash don't do this slash I didn't think of these before I said them. Number 1, samples, samples, samples. I cannot stress this enough, how good samples can be. The don't do of this tip is don't blind buy if you can absolutely avoid it. It's usually not a good decision, and you're stuck there with an entire bottle of something that you take one smell of and you just absolutely hate it and you want to smash it against the wall and you just had enough of it. You can't bear to look at it anymore. Yeah, I've done that a few times. So take it from me, don't blind buy. Get as many samples as you possibly can. Some websites are absolutely perfect for exactly this. They know that people like to sample these, and so they'll actually have these very cute tiny bottles. I'm going to show you. If you see here, this is a sample. Now this is from e-ticket. I know it's backwards on the screen, and the nice thing about them is they're about $5 a pop. So even if you, like I said, end up loving it, at least you know that you tried it in the first place and you didn't go ahead and blind buy based on a number of things that either I or other reviewers might have said. Some other great sample websites, again in Canada, would be Perfume Niche and Scent Split. And if I've missed any other ones, I will link them down below. And so if you ever want to check them out, you'll see it right down there. Tip Numero 2. Fragrances are personal. Not everyone is going to love the same ones. Some people are going to puke at one that somebody else, it's their favorite fragrance in the entire world. It happens all the time. People watch YouTube reviews, some of these really well-known reviewers, and they'll either buy or not buy a fragrance, not even sample a fragrance because of something somebody said. Another thing is, you know, if somebody around you doesn't like a fragrance, obviously that kind of sucks, but again, that one person might not like it, but then the next 10 people you see in the streets might love it. Tip number 3, know the fragrance and know how many sprays to use with that fragrance. You do not want to be that person that takes the strongest beast out there and just have a shower in it. I've done it myself. Like I said in my previous video, I do tend to probably use a little bit more than most people, but I did quickly realize that I needed to be more aware of these fragrances and which ones were beasts, which ones I could spray more and still not piss everybody around me off. sometimes you won't be able to actually tell either, which is the super annoying part about this. It's called nose. I don't actually know the term for it, but it's when your nose goes numb. So you might be spraying a bunch of times on you and you won't even notice that it's killing everyone around you until you see them running away from you as fast as they can. Tip number 4, don't get caught up in any of the hype. Either newcomers or even people that have been in the game for years and years. The reason I'm saying don't fall for the overhyped fragrances is because not that they're bad smells, they're hyped for a reason, but you don't want to smell like everybody else. And that's what tends to happen with these super hyped fragrances. Things like Acqua di Gio, Dior Sauvage, just to name a couple, they are just everywhere. And they're very good smelling. That's the problem, is because everyone loves them. So they go into the store, they're smelling and they're falling in love and they think they're the only ones. Meanwhile, you know, half the world is wearing the same exact thing. You don't want to smell like their ex-boyfriend, or even worse, their dad. And finally, tip number 5, use discount retailers if at all possible. They're basically online retailers that will have these fragrances shipped to them, or somehow they have connections. I don't know how they do it actually, to be honest, but they get the exact same things boxed exactly the way you see them at your local retailer. At a store like Sephora for 120 bucks, you might find the same thing at a discount retailer for like 70 bucks. Exact same thing. There are so many websites down there, and again, I'm gonna link some of them below for you to check out. So unless you just like spending money for no reason, it's a no-brainer. And let's do a bonus tip, because why not? Bonuses are the only reason I got through university, so I have a very special spot in my heart for them. Bonus tip number 6, use Fragrantica.com. Fragrantica is a great forum that has a lot of regular people like you or like me that write reviews on these things. You're not getting a YouTube version of these comments. These are real people. You can see what kind of notes are in the opening, the middle, and the base. So I'm not saying use these to blind buy anything by all means, but at least you can narrow down some of the ones you think you should like based on what the other ones are that you already know that you like. Fragrantica.com, and I'll link it down below. Woo! Thanks for tuning in, YouTube. There you have it, my top 5 advice / don't do's / please don't do's and fragrance terminology that you should be able to use in my future videos. Please stay on the lookout for my next video, which is going to be my top 10 summer fragrances of 2020. I'm very excited to drop that. It's going to be my first typical cologne review, so definitely be on the lookout for that. And again, thank you. See you next time. Fragrantica.